go.
You ready?
Yes.
All right. So I actually set a timer for my students whenever they give 5-minute presentations to make sure that they don't go over. It's actually worked very well, so I'm doing that for myself so that I don't talk your ears off and take up somebody else's time. So again, my name is Karen Block. I'm an assistant professor in Earth and Atmospheric Sciences, and this is a course that is actually not even in the books yet. It will be next time that it is offered. I offered it last year as a very traditional lecture-based course because it's a tremendous amount of work to create a new course, as you all know, and I'm an assistant professor, so I have other commitments also on my lap besides teaching. So, but it occurred to me that this is actually the perfect course to convert into a hybrid course because it is a gap in knowledge that our students have had for a very long time. It's not a required course yet. But my suspicion is that most students in our department will take the course because it is something that will help them get employment. So I thought that it was important enough to actually offer this. I am not a specialist in this subject, so there was also an additional hurdle in bringing up my knowledge to a level where it could be taught. And many of us will be teaching subjects in which we are not necessarily experts, but are within our general discipline. So I want you to keep that in mind as we go through this hybrid course. Our students get a very broad basis of knowledge in their introductory courses, and often they forget some of the very preliminary basic concepts that they learn in the introductory courses, and by the time that they get to their 3rd or 4th year, they have forgotten a lot of the terminology and concepts that they were initially taught. So I have found that doing reviews of that material usually helps. I tend to do some preliminary assessment in most of my courses to see where students are, and that way I can build up scaffold their background so that they can do better in the course as a whole. I found that last time I taught this course, the students did not have a lot of that knowledge accessible to them, and it kept the level of instruction at a much lower point than I would have liked. So I felt that it was necessary to try to help students develop better study habits by forcing their hand. And during the workshop that I attended last summer, one of the pedagogical ideas that I learned about, because I'm not trained as an educator, I'm trained as a scientist and as a researcher mainly, I learned about the flipped classroom. It's the idea of putting forth a lot of the material up front so that students can review the material and really be up to speed before they show up to class so that class meetings are more meaningful and we can actually get into deeper knowledge. But a lot of students will not generally do that background work unless you make them do it. So I had to put some stakes attached to that background knowledge. To give you a little bit of background of how I decided to structure the course, see if I can find it. I set up a schedule that is going to load in a moment, in which rather than having the material structured the way that I did last year, which was one midterm and one final, both exams were take-home exams because this is material that is extremely jargon-rich and very complicated. A lot of different environments are addressed and the processes that operate on that environment. In order to give students a fighting chance, I did the exams as take-home. And I have to say that the results were not as successful as I would have liked. So therefore, I felt that students would do better if they had smaller pieces of material that they could digest and mull over throughout the semester, and also not set the stakes so high where their entire grade hinged on 2 exams and a bunch of homework. So I changed the format for the hybrid course in such a way that the semester is split into units. And so Unit 1 encompassed the first 4 or so weeks of the semester, and I do a weekly quiz, more or less, that makes sure that the students have actually read the material and looked at the slides ahead of time. And I think that this has been probably the most successful component and something that I would like to implement in every single class, whether it's hybrid or not, in order to make sure that the students are doing the background work that they're supposed to be doing, because we have a huge spectrum of good study habits. So to give you an example of the types of quizzes that I was setting up, they are very much on the survey course level, just to make sure that students are up to speed with the vocabulary and with the basics of what we're going to be talking about. So I set up a series of pools. If you go into Course Tools in Blackboard and into the test surveys and pools, you can actually create pools of questions that you can reuse over and over. And this is one of the very useful things that I learned last summer during the workshop, where I put together somewhere between 8 and 15 questions, and out of those, students will be quizzed on about 5 of them. They get 2 attempts, so that they see a large variety of questions, and they will get credit for getting 4 or 5 out of 5. And so the idea, for example, if we look at any of these pools, they're mostly multiple choice and true and false questions, just to confirm that they have actually done the reading. And the questions are directly based on objectives that I have put together for each topic. So just to, I don't know if I should do edit or details. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Oh dear. In any case, what I will do is I will show you the topics so that we don't waste too much time just navigating Blackboard. In the course units, I have divided the units into several different topics, and each topic is associated with objectives, videos, readings, slides, and a quiz. So if you were a student and you were to take the quiz, it would look something like this. This test has about 10 minutes, which is, I can usually do any of these quizzes in about 1 minute flat. So 10 minutes is ample time for them to even do a very quick check. If they haven't done the reading or looked at the slides, they're not going to be able to do the research very quickly. But the idea here is not to make it high stakes, but just to make sure that they have the background. And that's why it's very superficial type of assessment. And if we begin the quiz, you will get oh, sorry, I missed the deadline. So you can also set limits as to when they can take the quiz, so that students are obligated to do it within an allotted time. And the grades are recorded in Blackboard automatically. If we go back to the course units, you will see that there's a short exam scheduled for each unit. Now, if you run a hybrid course, I believe that you are required to reduce your class time by the same percentage that you are putting online, so that you are not loading the students with more work than they're actually getting credit for. So, in other words, most of my material is in class. So about 30% of the material is on Blackboard, looking at the slides, doing readings, and doing some assignments. Those are all activities that are online. And therefore, I've had to reduce class time by 30%. So what that does is that I have one short meeting, 30 minutes, once a week, and the other meeting is longer. And what I try to do is schedule laboratory activities, hands-on assignments, anything that requires a little bit more guidance or more in-depth instruction to be done in class. And the other class time is to do a short discussion on maybe a topic that is not as complicated, and also to take these short exams. And the short exams are actually short essays, problem solving, and so therefore more meaningful assessment of the material that they have been covering. My experience was that for the first exam that was held on February 24th, the grades ranged, it was very much a bimodal distribution of A's, C's, and F's. There were no B's. So what that told me was that some students figured it out very quickly how to succeed in this course. They kept up with the material, they were doing the quizzes, and they were doing fine. The students that got high C's mostly were on a learning curve. They did not know what to expect out of the exam, and therefore the next time around they will figure it out and do better. the students that got Fs were not doing any of the background work, were not doing the homework, and were not preparing appropriately. And so I decided that I was not going to curve. I offered up as part of the syllabus the idea that not every quiz is going to count. I'm only going to count about 10 out of the 12 quizzes. And as far as the exams, since there are 4 short exams and a final, I will only count 3, the 3 best attempts out of the exams. And this way, you give the students a fair chance to catch up with their learning curve and with a new style of course that they may not have taken prior to this opportunity. So I only have a few minutes left, and so I want to show you the assignments that I have posted for this course, because some of the material is online, and in my opinion, the hands-on activities that we do in this course are actually the practical things that they will actually be able to take out in the field into a professional job in environmental consulting or professional geology, but also into graduate school. Many of these students learn to do skills by hand, but in the real world, they are going to be expected to do these same things digitally. And in order to make sure that the students are actually grasping the concepts in depth, I think that the hands-on component, the actual drawing of stratigraphic sections, for example, is something that needs to be honed. Students don't get that much practice in drawing, you will find, and they are rather intimidated by it. So they need that kind of practice. So I have them do certain assignments. For example, a short unit on mineralogy. I had the students look at certain thin sections of rocks, look at minerals in class, actually handle the microscope, become familiar with the different parts of the instrument, and then when they actually did the exercise, they were able to answer questions by looking at an online microscope. So roughly speaking, I set up the course so that there's course information, a course information tab that can be easily accessed. I have 35 seconds. And there's my syllabus, the course schedule, which I also transferred onto a calendar so that they can access in a calendar view something more familiar to them. There's an introductory lecture, and just to give you I guess I should have downloaded one of the lectures. Of course, the course units, which, by the way, I'm still building. I'm in the middle of Unit 3, and I'm about 2 weeks ahead of schedule. So there's a little bit of a race against the clock because of the preliminary work that is required for the course. But once it's set up, I anticipate that running this course next time is going to be a piece of cake, and it will really free up my time. I will do some small tweaks in the schedule because I'm learning as I'm going along. But I find that this is a model that will really work, and I find that the discussions really are much more in depth, and that we are having a lot more fun in class by just looking at stratigraphic sections and being out in the field more than we would have otherwise. And that's what I have for you. I'm happy to answer questions.